The Valorn unfolds across Liathaven, but it is in West Ranging where its intent is most focused. 3 Imperial armies, the Quiet Steppe, of course, with the Tusks and the Bounders in support, comes south out of the marches of Bregisland to face it there. It is not easy to fight a Valorn. The vanguard of the Valorn is green, vines and plants and flowers that grow so swiftly they seem to be moving, snaking over the trees of the western forests, smothering everything in their path, wrapping it in briars and thorns. Aberrant blossoms open to breathe forth the miasma that cloaks those places the Valorn have claimed. Soft white seeds drift on the wind, swiftly sprouting whenever they land on fertile soil. Human-sized ferns uncoil and spread their serrated leaves, sending out great clouds of golden spores. Where the spores find open wounds, a monstrous germination takes place, plants drawing sustenance from the liquids of the body as easily as from the ground. A few warriors get them in their eyes, and only the very fortunate are close enough to a physic that their sight can be saved. Soldiers become gardeners first, and warriors second. Perhaps it's appropriate that it is the marchers who support the Navarre. They are farmers, and sometimes fighting the Valorn is like weeding a fallow field. Scythes and sickles are employed as often as bills and bows. Fire works a little. Once the plants have been cut and torn out, they are burned. Walls of black smoke drift through the trees, joining with the miasma. This is not the heart of a Valorn. Once the fecund life is uprooted, it is slow to grow back. Behind the plants come the husks. The Synod says that these are tragic victims, that their life has not fled them, and their souls are trapped in torment. Unlike those corpses that are ridden by winter spirits, say the guides, the Valorn-spawn husks are living beings, enslaved forever on the verge of death. They're tenacious opponents, and they come with the miasma that brings swift death to those that fall before it. There's an unsettling egalitarianism to these Valorn-spawn. Navarre and Orc shape shuffle and stumble together, their differences wiped away by the plant life that controls them. Some are clearly recent, the wounds that felled them clear to see, writhing with fresh greenery. The others are older, much older in some cases, unrecognizable as human or orc, devoid even of the scraps of clothing or armor that the fresher Valorn-spawn sport. The Quiet Steppe have made preparations, slathering their weapons in oil of blackthorn or wielding rod and shield to deliver deadly venom. The Valorn-spawn husks cannot stand against these attacks, failing and withering like wax in a furnace. But there are so many of them, thousands. The bitter fruit of decades of war, of a legacy of the long centuries of misfortune and desperation before ever the Jotun came into the woods in force. Perhaps some date back to the fall of Liath itself, before the first Navarre took their oaths. Most of them are shaped like people, but a few are different. Hulking beasts, once ogres, now massive, overgrown threats. Cautious briarborn, the bark that marked their spring-touched bodies in life now grown to cover them entirely. They radiate the power of life, healing injured Valorn-spawn and sending them back against the Imperial soldiers. The Viridian wave breaks against the defenders, breaks and falls back and surges forward again. New horrors begin to appear. Among with the husks and the hungry plants come aberrations from the deep Valorn, unique in their madness, in their twisted shapes, but all too familiar in their desire to destroy and consume anything that stands against them. Plants that lurch forward slowly but inexorably, or that lie in wait like green spiders. Natural animals long since twisted and made strange by the awful fecund power of spring. A massive blind dire bear, covered in beautiful multicoloured blossoms. A pack of trilling forest drakes covered in whip-like fronds that trip and entangle those who fight them. A great humanoid effigy, half again as tall as the tallest marcher, faceless head surmounted with horns of braided vines, elongated wooden claws, ripping and tearing anything that comes within reach of its emaciated, stick-like arms. The Vates whisper. Not all these creatures are natural expressions of the Valorn. There are other powers at work here. Finally, the Ettercaps begin to appear. Massive carapace beetles scuttle out of the westward. They are rare, but when they appear they do not come alone. twisted insect creatures with the proportions of humans or orcs wrapped in chitin. These are something new. They bear scraps of metal and leather strapped to their bodies, armor looted from the battlefields. They wield weapons taken from fallen orcs, from lost Navarre scouting parties. They work together with more than the cunning of wolves or other natural beasts. Unlike the bulk of creatures that live within the Valorn, they seem aware of themselves, of their enemies. They are unmarked by the changes, the uniqueness that the Valorn fosters in its spawn. They use tactics, simple, straightforward, undeveloped, but tactics nonetheless. They flank, they ambush, they hunt out the weak links and fall on them. They possess an eerie fluidity to their movement and action, fighting together as a group, rather than each one attacking as the whim takes them, as is more common for the Valorn spawn. Horrors, then. A war of human folk against horrors. The Valorn creatures are at their most dangerous when they draw near a spring regio. The power of the Valorn takes root more easily there, more swiftly, and with more vitality. The plants and the husks are drawn to these places. Those who must fight the Valorn spawn around the scattered spring regios of West Ranging endure some of the worst fighting of the campaign. They also speak of things coming out of the regio. Handfuls of horrors that attack with the power of spring magic as well as wooden claws. The Vates whisper and mutter. Certain now. The hand of Yor Nagra rests on western Liathaven, despite the efforts of the Conclave to forbid her entry. Has she been called? Or is Liathaven so long outside the borders of the Empire that the Conclave's edict no longer holds sway there? There are more pressing questions. The matter of Yor Nagra must wait. The battle is hard, and it is tragic. Whenever a soldier falls, they pass quickly to the influence of the miasma. Without immediate aid, they become hosts for the very force that have struck them down. Left long enough, they rise again, infested with the power of the Valorn, to fight their former companions, especially the Briars. The Empire is not without powers of its own. Where the Quiet Steps fight, an inferno follows. A potent enchantment, fueled by the power of the Winter Realm, brings the flame of Surut to aid the Navarre. The incandescence is deep ruby red, almost black, and devours whatever it touches. It is eager to consume the Valorn spawn, but the Navarre seem to have little sway over it, and it burns where it wishes. Sometimes it is in the blades of the warriors, sometimes it kindles in their wake, seizing on fallen Valorn spawn or igniting suddenly in the branches of a living tree. It reduces everything to cold, grey ashes. It does not harm the Navarre or their allies. Not directly. After a few hours, anyone fighting alongside the Quiet Step is caked in dirty ashes, coughing from the smoke that clings to everything. Soap and water will not shift the stench of burning wood. The flames in particular seem hungry to consume the spring regio, and with each immolation of a magical place, they burn stronger. In the end, the green tide of the Valorn is met and turned back, but the fighting takes a heavy toll. Nearly 1,500 Imperial soldiers, the bulk of them marchers, fall before the unnatural ferocity of the living forest. Most of them who are overcome in Liathaven are burned, or beheaded, or rendered to dust by the power of Surut, lest they rise again as Valorn-spawn husks. No Navarre welcomes such an end, but for the marchers it is a particularly cruel fate. 800 yeomen have been denied the quiet peace of the soil of their homeland, denied the succour of apple trees, and the rest they have earned. In the end, as the last fires burn dim and the miasma begins to thin, the Empire has made significant gains in northwestern Liathaven. The land is as scarred as the soldiers, however. Swaths of forest have been consumed by Surut's blazing gift, or so warped by the Valorn that there was no choice but to take axe and burning brand to them. It will be decades before the woods recover, if they ever do. But for now, the Valorn's power has fallen blunted, if not subdued. Game information. The Valorn have been prevented from seizing West Ranging. The Empire has made significant headway towards capturing the region, but has not yet conquered it completely. They are still in the process of establishing a beachhead in northern Liathaven. As predicted, the Valorn's attempt to expand into West Ranging has expended a lot of energy, leaving it vulnerable. an opportunity exists to push south into westward and potentially clean the infestation from this region. As before, magic may be helpful in establishing how difficult that is likely to be. The lack of a beachhead in west ranging will make it more difficult to press into the westward. It will also mean fighting in an area claimed by the Valorn miasma. Casualties are likely to be higher than normal as a consequence. Fire has destroyed great swaths of the forest here, both natural fire and the grim magical immolation of Surut. The latter has left a wide ashen scar where nothing will grow, especially where it's consumed a spring regio. There is no doubt that this has been effective in helping the Imperial forces defeat the Valorn, but so much damage has been caused that the region has lost the forested quality. Almost all the spring regio and west ranging have been consumed by Surut's gift.